Hi, everybody. Today is May 15th, 2025. And this is part of my video journal in the recovery from the trauma of watching my little brother, my last surviving family member in Greater Vancouver, be locked up by the British Columbia New Democratic Party government with David Eby as leader. They locked up Paul after I complained to the Burnaby RCMP about a fraudulent and forged, what I allege is a fraudulent and forged power of attorney they created, appointing my 82-year-old Catholic nun sister 4,000 kilometers away in Ontario as Paul's guardian so that they could give him the COVID-19 shot. So as soon as they found out that I had reported them to the Burnaby RCMP, they ordered the nun to terminate Paul's visits with me, his last surviving family member and visitor. I had an agreement with the British Columbia government that I could visit with Paul 1 hour at his group home, L'Arche, L'Arche. If you have a loved one, ensure that they are never, ever placed in a L'Arche group home. It is a former sex cult of Jean Vanier, notorious sex predator. So they, as soon as L'Arche found out, which is a branch of the government, as soon as they found out I had reported them to the Burnaby RCMP, they terminated Paul's visits with me. I had an agreement with L'Arche and the government, David Eby's New Democratic Party government, that I could visit Paul twice a week, once for an hour at his group home, and then he could have a in-home visit at my place for 5 hours on Saturday. And as soon as I reached that agreement on January 5th of 2022, I got an email from L'Arche saying that they were terminating all of Paul's visits with outsiders because of a COVID outbreak in the group home. And so I tried to restore the visits. I wasn't able to do that, so I sued them. And the day that I served them with documents, they restored the visitation agreement that I had. It's a truly evil little cult, L'Arche, but it's an arm or branch of the New Democratic Party government. And the New Democratic Party government's supposed to be so pro-union. There's no union workers at L'Arche, and that's why the government likes it. They have it's immigrant women passing through Canada that speak English as a second language that are untrained as caregivers, but that's their workforce. Anyway, so I woke up today feeling quite despondent about the first thing I saw was a post by Brian Lilly, the reporter Brian Lilly, who's, he's part of the mainstream media cult. And he said, get used to the fact that we're going to be with this liberal, neo-Nazi liberal government of Mark Carnage for 4 years. No, I'm not going to get used to the fact. I just went through working on I worked on the Conservative Party of British Columbia campaign. I worked my ass off. I worked so hard. And then I believe we won, but the votes were counted electronically. They were scanned and counted electronically, and I believe that there was vote tampering in the algorithms used. It's the first time in Canadian history that votes have been counted by being scanned and counted digitally, and it's a complete waste of time. I mean, you can do anything you want with the algorithms in counting those votes, and that's exactly what David Eby, the corrupt grandmaster, did. And then I worked on the Conservative, that was the provincial election, and notwithstanding that the votes were tampered with, the Conservative Party of British Columbia did, I think, really well. But 3 of their candidates flipped to independent as soon as they were elected. They became stooges for the NDP. Somehow they were bought off or bribed or infiltrated by the provincial NDP. And so when people thought they were voting Conservative, what they got were NDP. So, and then I worked on the Conservative federal election. And I never worked so hard on anything in my life except for going to law school with 2 little kids. And what I could see was that the NDP in Canada threw their votes over to the Liberals with this Mark Carnage, WEF stooge. Oh. And what makes me so despondent, although I'm giving myself the luxury of being despondent for this week, and then I'm going to pick myself up and dust myself off next week. But when I saw the young, mostly young men that I worked with on the Conservative Party of Canada campaign, so these were men like 17, 18, 19, 20, young, tough, authentic, hardworking, honorable young men, much like I'm sure the young men that fought at the Battle of Vimy Ridge or the other battles that where Canadians always punched above their weight in the world wars. These young men were so betrayed by the Canadian electorate that stampeded when they had a grenade thrown into the political ring by Donald Trump. They stampeded for this idiot, loser, carpetbagger. I counted, he has 32 different nationalities or citizenships. Not 3, 32. So with the European Union passport he had, with the Irish passport, there's 27 nations in the European Union. And there's 4 nations in the United Kingdom. And then, of course, Canada. You know that saying, slave of 2 masters, servant of none. Well, that idiot, Mark Carney, is a servant of 32 masters, or slave of 32 masters and a servant of none. And for Brian Lilly to say, get used to the fact that we're going to live for 4 more years with this asshole as our prime minister, no thank you. After I saw how hard these young men worked for a new deal for Canada, they did everything right. They worked so hard. They used their own vehicles. They're paid for with their own gas. And they hustled so hard and they worked so hard. They deserve what I was thinking about this morning was at Auschwitz, there was a room where if you were lucky, you get sent to this room where you could sort through the clothes and valuables of the people that were killed by Hitler. And that meant you were going to survive. And they called that room Canada because they had the dream of someday ending up in the most wonderful country in the world, Canada. And look what we've got. We can't decide whether we're going to be the stooges of the Communist Party of China or of the United States. And we have to bring in some idiot whose wife and children still live in New York City, who hasn't lived in Canada for 10 years, who is going to expand Canada's euthanasia program to include incapable adults next year, and who wants to expand it to include children. Canada has killed 60,000 innocent, vulnerable, disabled people since October 19th, 2015, when Justin Trudeau was elected as medical assistance in dying. It isn't medical. I've fought and worked so hard my whole life as a lawyer, and I know what, legalese means. And medical means to heal. And you don't heal somebody by giving them a lethal injection and killing them. We've sunk so low. We've sunk lower than the Netherlands and the countries that Hitler had overrun. But I have enough faith in Canada and in Canadians to know that we're going to come back. We've come back before, and I lived through the October crisis in October 1970, when the Fédération Libération de Québec had killed the deputy premier of Quebec and kidnapped James Cross, the British consul to Montreal. I had the windows on our street were blown out by FLQ separatists. We had tanks rolling up and down our streets and a sniper on every rooftop. I've lived through that, and I know Canada can come back, and it will come back. Take care, everybody. I love you all.